Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for taking the time today to join us for the Elevate Finance Virtual Summit. My name is Anand Mishra, and I'm the Director of Product and Partner Marketing here at Tipalti. Just a few housekeeping items before we start. I will not repeat everything since it's been up on your screens for a little bit now. So the audio on your machines is muted, and you can only dial in using your computer. And please submit your questions via the Q&A section, and we will cover it towards the end. I would highly encourage you to look at the Resource Center as well for more content from both Tipalti and Piango, who's our partner and co-sponsoring this event. Also, please complete the survey at the end of this event. And we also have a couple of polling questions and would greatly appreciate your feedback. So just to provide a quick background, we've run these events over the past few years across various cities in the country and had an excellent response from the attendees. The goal of these events is to get finance professionals together in a small and intimate setting, talk about the challenges, and hear from folks like yourselves on how they are scaling and modernizing their financial operations. The main difference this time around is, due to the COVID-19 situation, we have decided to change it to a virtual format, and when the situation improves, hopefully soon, we will return to these on-site events. So let's kick it off. So here is the agenda for today. After a quick round of introductions, I will touch upon a few of the challenges that the discipline of finance faces today. After that, I will hand it over to Scott Olson, Tipalti's Director of Customer Marketing, who will interview our expert panelist, Marc Blacke, Corporate Controller at Noom. Marc will share his story and provide insights into how he has automated and modernized their payables operations. We will also hear from Mike Kenneth, CEO of Piango. Piango is one of our partners, and its budgetary control solution helps manage budgets and expenditures, and is ideal for businesses needing to gain control over their expenses. This is especially relevant in the current environment where every business leader wants to gain and maintain control over spending. This will be followed by a live product demo by our senior solution consultant, Erica Clark. And please enter your questions in the Q&A panel, and we will answer them towards the end. With that, we have our first polling question on your screen. So which of the following is your biggest payments-related challenge? There are 5 options that you have here. So high cost to make payments to suppliers, inability to pay suppliers on time due to operational issues, too many supplier inquiries regarding the status of your payments, concerns about fraud and compliance issues, which is coming up more and more due to the COVID-19 situation, and too many incorrect or duplicate payments. So you have 30 seconds to answer, and we will show the results shortly on the screen, and I'll spend like a minute or two discussing it. Hopefully everybody is warmed up enough looking at the screen and had a chance to respond to the questions. Give it a few more seconds here. Okay, to the results now. Oh, wow, now you see the results on the screen. And basically, this is pretty consistent from our experience as well, right? If you look at different challenges, that can take a priority position depending on the industry that you're in, but also all the issues related listed in the polling question contribute to the challenges in making payments, right? So you look at too many supplier inquiries, basically on the payment side. And this is a huge issue since, if there's a missing payment or errors in processing payments, it's the AR staff, or AP staff, I should say, that is trying to get to the bottom of the issue and basically first correct that, either from their side, or it could be the supplier has changed some information. So you have to connect with the bank or some other, source that's out there, and then not only resolve it, but also communicate that with the supplier and basically reprocess the payment. So this is generally highly inefficient. And 40% have also responded to high cost associated with making payments to suppliers. And this is consistent, again, with our experience as well. For example, if you're still using paper checks, it costs a lot. There are studies out there that show that 80% of the businesses still pay by paper checks, which is highly inefficient and costly. And the hard cost, basically, of B2B check payments can run on an average about $12 per invoice payment. And one other thing to note is that given the current scenario with most people working from home, what is the mechanism to print checks, put them in an envelope, stamp them, and mail them? So these are the challenges. Okay, moving on. So I just wanted to provide a quick overview about the challenges facing the finance today. So the role of finance has broadened significantly over the past decade, and this is not new to anyone. So beyond the core responsibilities of accounting, bookkeeping, financial reporting, and closing the books, finance leaders are playing a prominent role in company-wide strategy, in mergers and acquisitions, globalization, development, and other initiatives across the company. CFOs have also become prominent as the voice of the company in areas such as investor relations and communications with the board as well. Suffice it to say that the role of finance has broadened and become more strategic. The problem, however, is that the back-end processes are still manual, which take a lot of effort to get done. In fact, the effort may be higher now due to globalization and things such as the gig economy, different business models that are out there, vendors and suppliers being dispersed globally, and there are frequent changes in tax and regulatory compliance. So these are all the areas that you have to deal with in addition to what you're currently dealing on a day-to-day basis as well. So especially if you look at accounts payable, it is the number one most manual and time-consuming financial operation, and that is according to the Institute of Finance and Management. And that stands in the way of finance modernizing, automating, and getting to the higher standard of doing more strategic things. So our take at Tipalti is that this most time-consuming activity can be automated relatively quickly and easily and run like a machine in most cases with the current tools that are available in the market. Our recommendation is that you should look at payables holistically, not just the invoice piece or the payments piece, but the end-to-end function and automate those. So as you scale and become global with multiple subsidiaries, global tax and regulatory compliance to deal with, fraud and risk to manage, you won't have to bother about those if you have the right system in place. And that's where the payables transformation comes in. Many finance teams are modernizing the way they manage payables operations. And the reason they're doing it is to help their companies scale and be more efficient while also helping finance teams focus on more value-added tasks. It's also imperative that businesses develop and execute a sustainable plan to manage costs in the current situation, not only to weather it, but come out better on the other side of it. So if there is one message that you can take away from today's presentation, it is that the current systems and technologies that are available in the market today will help your team and operations become more efficient. So hopefully, having provided a bit of context on the challenges facing finance, I wanted to give you a quick overview about the Tipalti platform. So this is the wheel which highlights our philosophy that if you put a robust system in place now, you will not outgrow it as you scale. So we provide an end-to-end solution to manage the entire payables operations. It starts with supplier management, with self-service supplier onboarding, which includes 26,000 rules built in and validation to ensure data integrity. We have a KPMG certified tax compliance engine that identifies and collects the correct tax forms such as the W-9s and W-8s and generates 1099s and 1042S tax prep reports and calculates the necessary year-end withholdings. The solution also includes invoice processing with OCR technology and machine learning to ensure touchless or straight-through invoice processing along with advanced approvals. We also have 2- and 3-way PO matching if they are PO-backed invoices. We are a licensed money transmitter and pay across 190 countries in 120 currencies with 6 different payment methods. We also do sanction screening to ensure that we don't pay anyone who's on a terrorist watch list or who's listed as a money launderer somewhere. We have robust AP reporting with more than 20 out-of-the-box reports and real-time multi-entity payment reconciliation with ERPs, which ensures faster close. NetNow is our built-in early payment solution, and you can generate revenue by paying suppliers earlier without adding to workload or impacting your working capital. The one last capability that I also want to highlight that you see on the bottom of your screen is our multi-FX or intercompany bank transfer capability. So with this, you can save time and money on foreign exchange or FX conversions. It's ideal for companies with multiple entities who are paying in different currencies. So essentially what it does is, with Tipalti, we convert the currency that you're funding in into subsidiary currencies and process payouts from that perspective. And all this is built on the Tipalti platform, which ensures proper financial controls and compliance. So here's a sample list of our customers, ranging from fast-growing startups to established companies across various industries that are benefiting from Tipalti. Our customer satisfaction rate is 98%, which is by far one of the best in the industry. And the ROI includes eliminating over 80% of payables workload with our current technology, reduction in payment errors by over 66% with all the intelligent data capture and the payment validation rules that are built into the system, and also accelerating the financial close by 25% or more with real-time reconciliation with ERPs such as Oracle NetSuite, Sage Intacct, and QuickBooks Online. So here are some specific ROI examples from our customers. So Touch of Modern, which is a men's fashion company, went from $6 million to $150 million in annual revenue without adding to AP resources with Tipalti. Zola, which is a wedding registry company handling over $100 million in payments, kept their staff at 2 with Tipalti instead of 10 as they had projected without Tipalti. Docker, which is a container technology platform, not only reduced the AP workload by over 87%, but also accelerated the monthly close by 25%. Foursquare, which is a location technology platform, accelerated financial close by 16 days. So this is specific ROI of our customers, and we have hundreds of customers, like I mentioned earlier, who are benefiting from Tipalti. And next, you will hear from Marc on how Noom has benefited from automating their payable solution. But before we get into that, we have our second polling question of the day, which you'll see on your screen shortly, and you will have 30 seconds to respond to it. And the question is, what would be the biggest benefit of an automated AP process for your organization? And the choices that you have are noticeable improvement in AP process, reduction of paper invoices, quicker approval process, improved visibility of unpaid liabilities, and focus on more value-added activities. So please take 30 seconds and respond to the question. I don't have a stopwatch with me, but I think we can move on, given that we have so much to cover. Let's look at the responses. Oh, wow. So this is pretty cool, right? So if you look at the responses, focus on more value-added activities is one of the key, basically, benefits of an AP automated solution. And we actually see this on a regular basis since there's a lot more time post-automation to focus on these activities. And it is one of the key spin-off benefits which basically takes into consideration all the benefits that you listed on your screen. And we've heard it time and again from our business leaders that they're able to focus on more strategic and value-added tasks by automating their AP processes. And noticeable improvement in the AP process in general is one of the key things, right? So just wanted to add a comment here. The traditional perception is that AP is just about paying the bills. Well, it's not so, right? It's all about all of the processes from invoice processing to supplier management, including your supplier communication, maintaining your vendor master file, the approvals, especially in the current scenario, which can be a nightmare, and staying in compliance, avoiding fraud, and then reconciliation with your ERP systems to close the books. And all these together are generally often done manually, right? So not only is it inefficient, it also adds risk to the process, risk of basically human error, or being out of compliance, or failing in an audit, or hefty fines if you're not collecting the tax documents, or if you're paying somebody who's on a terrorist watch list somewhere. So basically, you have to factor in all these connected areas, in order to come up with a case for AP automation. And I see that, basically that's the case with all the attendees here. So basically, with that, I would like to hand it over to Scott. He will take over from me and interview Marc Blacke, Corporate Controller of Noom. Scott, take it away, please.
All right. Hey, thanks, Anand. And welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Scott Olson, and I'm the Director of Customer Marketing with Tipalti. And I've spent most of my career in software that's been aimed at streamlining workflows and improving decision-making for finance and operations. And today I'm excited to be joined here by a leader who has really transformed the financial operations of his company at Noom, and that is with Marc Blacke. Marc, thanks for joining us. You're leading a really innovative company with Noom. So
Thank you, Scott. Very happy to be here.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of introduction of Noom and Marc, so don't try not to blush too much, and then we'll get into our conversation. For those in the audience, remember we do have a Q&A window, so if you have any questions during our conversation, please use the Q&A window, and we'll get to those at the end of our webcast. All right, so let's meet Marc. He is the corporate controller at Noom Inc., which Noom is the world's leading behavior change company, disrupting the weight loss and healthcare industry. By combining the power of artificial intelligence, mobile tech, and psychology with the empathy of over 1,500 personal coaches, Noom helps people live healthier lives and by really changing their long-term habits. More than 50 million people have benefited from Noom, from their change behavior courses, including a virtual diabetes prevention program, which was the first of its kind to be recognized by the CDC. Prior to Noom, Marc held finance leadership positions at Outbrain and Deloitte. Okay, Marc, welcome to the discussion. I know I just highlighted a few highlights about Noom, but I'd love to hear from you. Tell us about Noom and your role there as a controller.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. So my role at Noom is very interesting and challenging from my perspective. I see it as a unique opportunity because I got to join Noom as a first accountant. I don't know if you can believe that, but that was about 9 months ago. Noom, at the scale of $100 multi-million revenue company, didn't have an accounting team. And my responsibility was to create one and to put in place processes and systems, as well as hiring the right talent and creating the right policies to be able to operate, at such a scale, and also to be able to operate potentially as a public company going forward. So that was very challenging, very exciting, and that's how I got to get closer to Tipalti once again. I had implemented it in the past, and it's one of the first software I started implementing when I knew I was going to migrate from QuickBooks to NetSuite.
Excellent. So you have a unique opportunity to build out the team there. Do you have a philosophy of the role of finance in helping Noom's mission?
Yes. So, Noom's mission is to make people's life healthier everywhere. It's very broad, but as you mentioned, we started with different conditions where we had clinical research in pre-diabetes and diabetes. We are more commonly known from a B2C perspective with our customers as a mobile service around weight loss. That's our most sold product. But behind that, it's really about behavioral change. And interestingly, in finance and accounting, sometimes you also need some behavioral change, and it applies to us as well. And the role and how I can do that at Noom, because I have that unique opportunity to start from scratch. I want to apply the mission and the principles to be as efficient as possible, to reduce the cost to the organization, and to really have the finance team providing value-added, advices and helping, draft the strategy, being in the right conversations, instead of doing something very operational. So for me, it's really about efficiencies, effectiveness, and maintaining a lean team in an environment where I'm in hypergrowth, and I know we need a lot of scalability because, over the last couple of years, we quadrupled our size, and we are most likely going to double again this year. So scalability and automation is a key factor that I want to consider, especially because I'm in a hyper-growth company like Noom.
Indeed. Obviously, the world changed dramatically with COVID-19. How has it affected you and your finance team?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to have been able to hire, my first 3 team members in the first couple of months. So before and prior COVID-19, so it didn't impact us as a finance team as much when we were doing recruitment. But obviously, we have all been affected by what is going out, worldwide, and that pandemic has put a lot of stress on our organization and our people. But we have been also very grateful and fortunate that it didn't impact us as much as it did impact other companies. So what it would mean in terms of processes and systems on top of the recruitment aspect I already mentioned, it meant that we were actually ready. COVID-19 didn't really impact our operations from a finance and accounting perspective because we had already implemented TPLT and connected it to NetSuite, which is our new ERP. So the migration from QuickBooks had happened into NetSuite. TPLT was successfully implemented in the first couple of weeks and prior to COVID-19. And that helped us actually being able to process payments and bills, and as well as getting the approvals and not being worried about receiving the invoices through envelopes at our headquarters. We're actually able to do all of that electronically and from home. That was really a game changer for us.
Yeah. And now that things are starting to settle down as we begin to open up the economy, what are you focusing on now? Is there anything different today that you're looking at doing or your outlook compared to maybe 6 months ago?
Yeah, so, now we have, in the first 3 months, we have implemented NetSuite. We have implemented TPLT. We have implemented an expense management system. In the same 3 months, we actually have implemented an equity software to manage our stock options and SBC. We also implemented Workday to manage and automate payroll because, as you mentioned, we have about 2,000 coaches right now. We hired since you prepared that presentation. And we are operating in an international fashion. So from an international perspective, what I'm doing right now is extending our TPLT implementation to cover our subsidiaries in Japan and Korea, and being able to actually pay and manage our risk in those countries when it comes down to suppliers onboarding, compliance, bill processing, approval, and especially payments, as well as the payments reconciliation. We can all, we can be able to do that now in Japanese and Korea, optimizing our TPLT platform that is multi-subsidiary, and do that from HQ. So that is my focus, where I'm, dedicating some of my time now, because we benefit from the implementation of TPLT for the US, for the parent company, and we are now able to actually fine-tune that same implementation and extend it for Korea and Japan, which has its own complexities because of the fact that they are international and in a different language that I actually don't speak. So it's a little bit more difficult, but that's what we are doing right now. At the same time, we are implementing an FP&A software, and we are automating our order to cash. Because we started with procure to pay, which created a lot of efficiencies on our end. And now we are able to use that time to implement more and have kind of a snowballing effect by using the time saved to provide more value to the company, further automate, and have more snowballing effect to actually being able to provide strategic advice and better reporting.
Excellent. Well, looking back just a few months ago, Marc, can you describe when you arrived at Noom, the payables operation there, and some of the challenges that you were seeing right away?
Yeah, so we had outsourced most of the payable activities, but we were still receiving by email or by envelope all of the bills. So our first step would be to potentially scan them if they were coming by envelope, or forwarding them or keeping them in a Drive folder that our external accountants could access. Then there was an Excel spreadsheet where we were monitoring the bills that were already coded into QuickBooks at the time, and to manage our cash flows and knowing when we would have to pay them, the respective due dates. So that was done very manually. And on top of it, we had the complexity of getting approval through the organization by email. So once the bill would have been scanned, we would send it to the person we thought was actually the approver. It was very challenging for me because I was new in the organization, so I didn't know everyone. And sometimes I had to bother and ask who would normally approve that bill. Or I would have to look into the historical information from the mailbox to find out, or in QuickBooks to see who did it. And there was a lot of follow-up happening to make sure that I got approval on my bills. It was obviously something that was far too complicated and that should have been automated. So it was a no-brainer to actually implement TPLT, and all of that would be solved with an organized process, an implementation that wouldn't take too long. I think it took about an hour to actually connect to NetSuite, and it worked in Sandbox, and about 2 weeks to implement and go a couple of details and taking a couple of decisions. And that's how we were live and running in Sandbox, and we very quickly moved it to production, onboarded progressively our vendors every time we had new bills coming in, and migrating the opening bills and the balances. So very quickly we were up to speed, and no, there wasn't anymore that heavy manual process. We could actually dedicate more time on more important things, which for me were the successful implementation of NetSuite and our expense management.
Indeed. And so you touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to hear now how everything flows today. You were getting bills in various ways and having to log them into different drives and spreadsheets to track. Describe the flow today, and you guys not only pay invoices globally, but you also have a mass pay component to partners that are helping Noom with some of your projects. So describe, the invoice processing and your mass pay process as well.
Yeah, Scott, so how it works today, I actually checked earlier. We already processed in the last couple of months almost $100 million. We have 400 active vendors that are payable. And we have those vendors categorized by, suppliers, contingent workers, related parties, clinical research participants, tax agencies, and we're able to customize that within TPLT so that whenever I pay, I can prioritize, or I can issue reports with two different categories. So what we do is we securely invite our vendors to the portal, sending them an invite, and we can do that with a mass upload, or we can do that individually. We obviously started with mass upload with the help of TPLT. And once the tools were onboarded, we now do it manually, whenever they come in. Verify that we have the contract. The contract would be within NetSuite. The vendor is created. I approve them, so my team creates it, and I approve every single vendor, just because I like to have that visibility and control. And all of that happens with segregation of duty as well, so that I know my team cannot change any banking information, for instance. And I also have the comfort of knowing that when that onboarding happens, I have all of the compliance requirements being fulfilled in any jurisdiction where my vendor could be located. Because we have contingent workers outside of the U.S., we are paying tax agencies, all over the globe, and we have vendors and suppliers from everywhere as well. So what I need to make sure on my end is that I got the proper information to handle in the future 1099s, but also to make sure that I have all of the compliance with regards to W-8, W-9, or any other document that might be needed because of the 26,000 rule engine, behind the TPLT. So that when the vendor onboarding is done, the bills now automatically flow into a mailbox that has been created for that purpose. And once it arrives in that mailbox, OCR is taking over. And while at the beginning we had to train OCR and tell them, to which expense account that bill would, for instance, be coded, and who was the approver. Now OCR is actually preparing that in advance and behind the scenes. And when we open it, it's pre-populated, and we just validate and confirm. And when approvers change, it takes 2 or 3 more invoices to be processed via OCR, and it automatically recognizes a new approver. So a lot of time and saving there and efficiency. The approver now receives an email with the bill attached, and it's already properly coded. It can check to which expense account or budget that bill would be going by line item with the proper quantities and prices and tax codes. And also, he can look into the bill itself because it's attached, and it's allocated to his departments or other departments that he can approve by line item. So we have a better control there, and we know that data is going to be very important for us in the long run when we're going to improve our budgeting with the implementation, as I mentioned earlier, of an FP&A tool. We can also do that with PO matching, which is going to be a step that we plan to do as well, so that we now have the data. We are collecting the data for months now, and we're going to be able to prepare the POs and the FP&A portion that will follow, and the processing. So on that end, very simple, extremely fast, and as we grew and increased significantly the number of our vendors and also our jurisdictions, as we have been growing internationally as well. That's possible in any currency, and it's very efficient. And then when it comes down to the payments, I know that I can process the payments. I can send them for approval. There are very good controls there. I don't have to be worried about double payments, because I know that when I process the payment, and the bill is approved. So first the bill is approved, it connects automatically to NetSuite, and then when I process a payment, it will close automatically that bill in NetSuite. So there is no more possibility of having an error in my AP subledger and having a risk of double payment. So I can do that in multiple currency across the board, and I can process as many bills as needed, because everything has been designed to scale.
Excellent. And you touched a little bit on the benefits there.
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned mass upload. We are doing clinical research at Noom, and we have participants that actually use the program, and then we have a control group of people who don't, and we measure all of that, and do research and white papers as a result. And so we have hundreds of participants who have to pay for low balances, but before that it was done by check, and the check would get lost, and we would have people saying they didn't receive it, or we would have to void them, send them again. And when you are dealing with hundreds of participants, that's very overwhelming. Now we are able to do that with a mass upload, creating them as a vendor. We select that they don't need to submit their tax information, because we know it's going to be below $600 at the end of the year. So there is no requirement for us to send a 1099. So we can just ask them to provide the banking information. They can select how and when they want to be paid. And all of that is very seamless for us in terms of onboarding. And then we similarly upload the bills that have been approved as a mass upload by the people in charge of the clinical research. Instead of sending them manually one by one, they can approve it on an Excel spreadsheet. We easily upload that to Tipalti, and I don't have to be worried anymore about timely payment to the people who help us with clinical research.
That's great. Real quick, just any other immediate kind of benefits to you and your team right now with the automation that you have, the productivity gains that you're gaining? Highlights of some more benefits that you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, peace of mind is the biggest benefit, and scalability is another one. We recently had an example about scalability. We ended up doing an M&A transaction, and as a result, we had to onboard hundreds of new vendors. And I remember my VP of Finance saying that, when that happened, the first worry was it would have been terrible if that would have happened to the business at the moment we were still using our old payment system and processing, right? She would have been very, very worried that we would need an additional headcount to actually process all of those bills and vendors as part of our organization. And she was very happy to actually think that, no, it's not going to be an issue because we implemented a payment processing platform and that AP is automated. So on our end, Tipalti really gave us that peace of mind that whenever we scale or there is something exceptional happening like M&A, we can actually deliver to the business as we are supposed to, and we are not saying no or having any kind of I want to say being worried, any kind of worry around the fact that we wouldn't be able to deliver on our end operationally. So that's absolutely great. In the same way, we can open any new market around the world, and I know I can pay to suppliers, and I don't have to worry about the currencies, for instance, unless it becomes material enough where I obviously can bring added value to optimize that through Tipalti as well.
Great, Marc. Thank you so much for joining us today for this discussion. I know we had one last maybe question on advice. Real quick, for those in the audience that are looking at a transformation like this around their payables process, what advice would you give them?
I would say start as soon as possible to automate, your procure-to-pay process because there is it's low-hanging fruit. It's very easy to do, and the benefits are consequent because it's operationally very drowning. There is a lot happening in AP. It takes a lot of resources, but it's also something that can be easily automated through Tipalti, for instance, and it works really well. And the benefit you will have from that implementation will give you that snowballing effect I explained earlier, and you'll be able to really dedicate your time on value-added tasks instead of operations that need to be scalable as your business grows. Thank you, Marc. Great. And now I'd like to turn it over to Mike Caniff from Pay and Go, who is going to introduce himself. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mike. Thank you, Scott. Thanks, Marc.
Great. Thanks. This is Mike Caniff, CEO of Pay and Go. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you,
Mike.
All right. So I'd like to start off with a quick poll question, and this is focused more on spending as well. So what level of spend control do you require in your business? Do you currently use a fully automated and tightly controlled system? Is it semi-automatic, maybe through some sort of an approval workflow process? Or do you rely on your budget to actual reporting to get an idea of your expenditures throughout a particular period? So I'd appreciate it if everyone could fill out the poll question. I'm going to move ahead and introduce Piango. So again, welcome to Piango's Budgetary Control, and I want to thank Tipalti for the opportunity to sponsor this event. We were founded in 2012 with a focus and mission of building advanced accounting solutions on top of the NetSuite platforms. What that means is that we're 100% integrated with NetSuite, integrated at the data level, at the security level, and at the user experience level. Our budgetary control solution controls billions of dollars, as well as hundreds of thousands of budget line items with organizations across the world and various industries, software, nonprofit, retail, etc. We cover a lot of industries. So you need to have spend control to avoid any kind of cash flow gotchas. What if some rogue department orders some supplies that may not be needed? Maybe they're interested in holding a foosball tournament and order a bunch of foosball tables and then haven't thought really about social distancing. So now we can't do the foosball tournament. Are you going to be able to catch that before purchase orders and vendor bills have been created? And so you need to have full visibility into all spending, yet be able to delegate that spending to cost centers and have automated controls to check those types of rogue purchases. Once you implement budget control, you can foster a partnership between various cost centers and the financial planning organization within your company. That can identify maverick spending as well as eliminate any kind of duplicate effort that might pop up with extra purchase orders or invoices being created. So Piango's budgetary control provides this type of real-time insight. For example, you can establish a revenue and expense forecast for a project. As expenses roll in on the project, these are then controlled by Piango. So when you calculate a net profit per project, you can be sure that your original expense budget is not overspent. That's going to contribute to your bottom line. So if you're making sure your bottom line is good, then you can focus on your revenue side to ensure your project's profitabilities. This increases overall procurement governance. It increases data quality because now only allowable expenses can really be charged throughout your procurement process. And that results in a proactive approach to managing your spend. So some key features is that we enforce budget checks throughout the procurement process, and this enables other processes such as expense reporting and journals. So we cover all expense-related transactions. The traditional budget to actual report is enhanced with the inclusion of encumbrance or commitment data. We can reduce errors because, again, when a transaction is entered, it is budget checked to make sure that it is a valid combination of, say, account, department, maybe location. We handle a variety of complex budget scenarios, such as multi-level budgeting. Maybe I want to be able to budget a certain dollar amount at each individual department, but a roll-up to the parent-level department, and I might want to control at that level. So we can handle both sets of budgeting. We can budget for CapEx, projects, as well as your operational expenditures. We handle custom segments that you might use within NetSuite. So it's a very robust set of features. Let's take a quick look at the way Piango budget control works. When a transaction is raised here on the bottom of the screen, that will if it is over budget, you will get an over budget pop-up or indicator telling the user that they've exceeded their budget and the specific combination of segments that are being used. We can either control this, which would force the user to revise the amount before saving the transaction, or allow for a warning mode, and that would then tag the transaction as being over budget, and that could then be routed through workflow. And once that transaction is saved, we will track the committed amount. In fact, what we do is we actually track 3 different buckets of information on a budget ledger. So we maintain this budget ledger for each line item in your budget, and we track the committed or unapproved amount, the obligated or approved purchase order amounts, and then finally your invoiced or fully expensed amounts. That provides a wide range of analysis that you can then do, and we can leverage NetSuite reporting to be able to support that. So we can take that information and surface it on the NetSuite homepage or dashboard and show maybe a list of budget lines that are approaching a threshold, or show a KPI indicator, or in the bottom right here we can show a set of or a chart based upon department or location. You can slice the data in a wide variety of ways. We can also take advantage of NetSuite's new budget analytics tool, or I should say their regular analytics tool, and show the budget data. So we can show this transaction by transaction and show what's committed, expensed, and see that full history. And in the past, you might have to export that data to Excel and then work at pivot tables in Excel, but now we can do that all within the NetSuite platform. So I want to thank everyone for listening in on Piengo's Budgetary Control. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Just do a search for Piengo on those platforms, and enjoy the rest of the presentation.
Hello, this is Erica Clark, and I am a solutions consultant here at Tipalti, and I will be walking you through a demo of the platform. So what we have here first is when Anand walked you through the wheel, as we call it, showing you the holistic approach that Tipalti takes to the AP automation space. We start with the supplier management. So we'll first walk through the supplier management portal, and then we'll migrate to the Tipalti platform, where we'll take a look at where invoices are processed and also payments are made. What you have here that is populating is the onboarding portal. Remember that this onboarding portal is for your vendors. Your vendors will be welcome to their individual portals for them to enter their data themselves. They are entering data such as their address. The address serves two different purposes. One is for us to be able to conduct a OFAC screening on the address, making sure that the address is accurate. And then the second purpose is to be able to dictate which payment methods are available. As I scroll down, this particular vendor will make it so that they're in the United States. As an example,
Hey, Erica, this is Anand. There is a question from the audience that they cannot see a screen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Anand. So onboarding portal, white labeled, meaning they're going to be branded to your organization, have your logo, your colors. Every vendor will feel confident that this portal is being hosted by you. After we've collected the address, we are allowing your vendors to select a payment method. Tipalti offers 6 different payment methods, once again, all driven on that address. We're validating banking information as it's being entered into the portal. We're also collecting tax information. So as I progress to the tax forms, you'll see W-9s here, W-8s. If this is a scenario where there's a VAT registration, we're also collecting that registration number as well. The value of collecting these tax forms is that they're safe. Also, we're conducting a TIN validation on the W-9, bumping it up against the IRS database to make sure that the information is indeed accurate. A couple of other value points of this portal for your vendors as it comes in multiple languages. They all have access to payment history. This will show them the payment status along with previous payments that they have received. Depending on your accounting system, there can be a sync of this vendor information into your ERP. As I move here to the Tipalti platform, we will now take a look at invoice processing. One thing to note here is the UI of the Tipalti platform. Very clean, very easy to use. Everything is in tabs. You have the bills tab. So this is where those invoices are going to come in. This is where the OCR will process those invoices. Payee tab, this is where all of your vendor information will be and where you can maintain that data as well. Reports, if you'd like to generate a report regarding payments, bills, payee list, all in the reports tab. Detect if there's any errors that come back pertaining to the OFAC screening or any of the validations that we're doing, that will be found there. Alrighty. So what we're doing is Tipalti is replacing all of the manual labor that you may have currently today and extracting those invoices from an email inbox and now supplying them as a list here for you. As I select one as an example, you will see the invoice image to the left. And to the right, we're utilizing OCR, so optical character recognition, to be able to extract that header level information from the invoice. Should you have multi-entities, so multiple entities within your organization, we will tie every vendor to an entity as well. As I scroll down to the bill lines, Tipalti will have the capacity to mirror your allocations that you're using in your ERP, have them here. We provide the coding for you as well. What we're doing is utilizing machine learning. Very advanced with technology here at Tipalti, and you'll be provided with your coding. You're able to edit those results should you need to. We're also supplying you with a recommended approval sequence, also utilizing machine learning. The idea is we know how these invoices have been routed for approval previously. We'll supply that to you as our customer. You have the flexibility to move the order around, to set a dollar amount for each approver. You can also add new approvers to your approval sequence. Once this bill has that all of the information that Tipalti has supplied you is accurate, and you've possibly made a couple of tweaks here and there, you will simply submit this bill. In submitting the bill, this will trigger the approval workflow to begin. I have an example here as for the email. So Tipalti is mobile responsive. So this gives your approvers the ability to approve on the go. They will receive an email that gives them all of the data from the invoice, a list of the approvers, a PDF of the actual invoice image, and then there are options to approve. The first is to simply approve the bill. When they approve this bill within the body of the email, it is approved. Update the coding, giving an approver the right to be able to change that coding. The third option is to send back to AP with a comment as to what they should make a change to. And then the last option is to dispute a bill, and that would send that bill back to the vendor for further review. Depending on your ERP, there'll be a real-time sync of those bills, those approved bills, into your ERP, which is where it will create an open bill record. Now we're going to take a look at being able to go ahead and create a payment run. So we now have a list of all of those bills that have been approved, and it's time to create a payment run. You can add multiple filters to create the payment runs and narrow that down as you'd like to. When you go ahead and create that payment run, then you'll select the parameters. Pay based on payment cycle, perhaps, or to pay the bills on a specific date. Naturally, as you've selected that, that is going to turn into a payment batch. Several payment batches here. What we offer is pay control. So if you have one person, perhaps two people that need to approve payments before they're made, before they're remitted, we can mirror that in an electronic way. Payment batches will have all of the payments that you've chosen. And truly the power of Tipalti is highlighted here. This payment batch has multiple payments all in one batch, in multiple currencies also within this batch, streamlining that entire payment process for your organization. From there, Tipalti will tell you exactly how much money is required to remit that payment on your behalf. So what the payments total to. Once you know that, Tipalti, you will select the bank account that you would like to remit those payments from, and you'll push your funds to your Tipalti virtual account. Tipalti, we create virtual accounts that essentially allow us to be able to remit those payments on your behalf in a timely fashion. And you wire that amount or ACH that total amount to your virtual account, and those payments will be processed that day. Lastly, would be reporting. You can generate a report based on payments or perhaps bills and download it as a CSV file. And I'll just pause right there and check for any additional questions in the chat.
Thanks, Erica. We may have time, I guess, for one question. And I think, Marc, this is basically for you. So we basically hear, from executives or for senior management, basically that when they want to automate their AP side of it, it's essentially that everything is already running smoothly, or we are not big enough, we don't have the budget. And these are some of the common objections that you hear, when trying to automate your basically end-to-end AP solution. And what would be your advice? I know you covered it a little bit in detail, earlier, but to make a business case for deploying basically a cloud-based AP automation solution, how should, folks proceed with it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I have faced that at my prior employer, where actually there was a treasury team, there was an existing AP team, about 4 to 5 people, dedicating their full time on just processing AP and payments. So when I first joined the company, I thought, there is to be a process that is more scalable and where we have better controls. At the time, for our case, we didn't have OFAC controls built in. So it was also an international company paying and processing payments around the world in different currencies. Most of the payments were still made in US dollar, which actually forced us to have OFAC compliance. Office of Foreign Asset Control applies to any payment in US dollar, even if we would do that actually from our subsidiary in UK, for instance, or at that time in Japan. So one of the big aspects that was really part of our business case was that compliance that we didn't have, because it was an industry where the risk relating to our vendors was much, much higher than currently, for instance, at Noom. So that was something that was automated, and the fact that we had 26,000 rule engine behind TPLT platform helped us provide us that comfort and security that in any case, any scenario of any vendor around the globe, we will always have the right tax documentation and be sure that you are applying the right withholding. And when you pay multi-million dollars across the globe, withholding becomes an issue, especially if after a couple of years you might realize that you didn't withhold on taxes for some of those jurisdictions on some of those balances. It could add up, and that's very risky. But the most important aspect for us was the capacity to do net no, and we were actually able to almost completely transform a cost center into a profit center. Because we would benefit from the net no of our publishers. So that would provide, and that's probably something very important to them right now, I can imagine, the publishers would have the capacity to fund themselves through the net no program that I had implemented there. At a moment where they might be short in liquidity, it would be a win-win for Outbrain in that case and the publisher. So that could have been something that I would value, or helping your suppliers in difficult times. That could add to your business case. But most importantly, where we had the biggest benefit was around the number of people we needed to process AP, and how we could actually reallocate the task relating to AP that we saved through the automation to provide more added value tasks and accelerate the close. So we're very fortunate to actually be able to reallocate the resources and train them to do other accounting tasks instead of processing bills and payments.
Thanks, Mark. That's excellent advice. I hope everybody's taking notes. If not, you'll get to hear it, the recording once again. We are actually at the top of the hour. I apologize that we couldn't get to all the questions, but I assure you that somebody from TPLT will get back to you soon. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time to attend today's event. I also want to thank Marc Blacke for a comprehensive and compelling Noom story. Thank you, Mike Kenneth, for providing an excellent overview about Piango's budgetary control solution. And thanks, Erica, for that short but really impressive demo. And if anybody on the audience wants a detailed demo and wants to know more, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to connect with you. And thanks, Scott, for an engaging interview with Mark. Thanks, everyone, and stay safe and have a great day.